The following program contains depictions of animal abuse, torture, and adult language and themes. Viewer discretion is strongly recommended.
Good evening. It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago, and it's 7 p.m. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hello, everybody. I am Mad Dog Scipio. This is America's Podcast, What's the Buzz? And I'm joined tonight by my amiable co-host, Amelia the Pitbull Chapman. How are you, Amelia?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Amelia, we have a very special guest tonight. It's that gentleman sitting right there, that good-looking fella, live from the UK. They tell me that you stayed up late for me, Eduardo.
Hey, it's midnight, but it's a beautiful night out there. It's nice and warm. There's a cool breeze, so it's a pleasure to be up.
Thank you
Beautiful.
for that.
Let me introduce everyone to this fascinating young man. We are honored to be graced by a gentleman named Eduardo Goncalves. And Eduardo is a fascinating guy in many respects. Not the least of which is he is a one-man wrecking crew on the trophy hunting business. And I will tell you, I didn't know much about you, Eduardo, when I did some research. But, brother, you're kind of like everywhere on this subject. There's not an organization that exists that you're not either a part of or that's afraid of you in some regard. You're knocking on some heavy doors, and you're doing it largely by yourself. So welcome to What's the Buzz podcast, and we're honored to have you here. Let me start off with the obvious question. You know, you could pick up a lot of different mantles and a lot of banners to carry. Why the trophy hunting business particularly?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on.
Quite welcome, sir.
I picked it up because there wasn't really anyone else doing it, and it seemed such an important issue to do. So 10 years ago, you'll remember, I'm sure, that the huge coverage there was over the Cecil story. So
Cecil the lion, yes, sir.
Exactly, the lion that was shot by that Minnesota dentist, Walter Palmer, down in Zimbabwe. And everyone was talking about it all of a sudden. And, the Jimmy Kimmel show and Mia Farrow, and it was on all the networks. And then it kind of went away. But the impression that it gave a lot of people was the same as why people reacted to it. It was like, are people still doing this? How is it that people are still shooting animals like lions? Wasn't that something that disappeared decades ago? And it seemed like it was a one-off. That Walter Palmer was a one-off kind of guy, that the killing of this lion was a one-off event. And as I looked into it, and I was actually involved in other things at the time, and I came to it a little bit later when suddenly the government of Botswana said it was going to allow elephants to be hunted there again. And that was my sort of second wake-up call, really. And I thought, hang on a second, I've got to look at this. And it was when I started looking, I found it is a massive industry. It's an industry that works actually quite hard to keep itself in the shadows.
Eduardo, my understanding is that it's nearly $1 trillion a year industry.
I mean, there are a lot of companies making a lot of money and out of this. And that's kind of what set me on my most recent journey, which is actually to try to understand the minds of the people involved. Because up until then, yes, I've been able to tell people about the numbers of animals that are shot, the different species that are shot, even how they're shot. But the one question I kept on getting time and again, and I wasn't really able to answer, is why do people do this? What goes through the mind of somebody who enjoys doing something like this? And anyway, it raised. I stumbled across so much. So we were, as I say, we remember Cecil. That happened almost exactly 10 years ago. Well, it turns out that trophy hunters have shot another 10,000 lions since Cecil was killed. And just to put that into perspective, scientists tell us that there's probably fewer than 20,000 lions left in the world right now.
Yeah.
Whereas back in the 1970s, there were 200,000. So that's a 90% collapse. And we're still shooting them. It's still legal. And there's still a lot of companies that are making a lot of money out of it. And there's hunting industry groups that are giving prizes to people who shoot lots and lots and lots of animals.
And we're going to talk about that. We had something happen here in the States where, I can't believe the amount of money, prize, you're talking about prize money, the amount of money that's up for grabs. The rarer the species, the higher the dollar amount goes. What gnaws, I don't even know which word to use. I'm so angry. What really irks me to no end is they continue to romanticize it like it's a beautiful thing. Why do, particularly here in the States and in Great Britain, where the hell does this romantic nature come from? Explain this to me, because maybe I'm a little stupid. I don't quite understand that.
There's nothing romantic about it whatsoever. It is a cruel and cowardly business. And I choose those words carefully because one of the things that came across out of the Cecil saga was this lion, he was shot with a bow and then he was just left to die. And that was seen as being particularly outrageous. Well, it turns out that that's actually pretty normal. So the majority of trophy hunters have no real aptitude. They're amateurs. They're not marksmen. They're not snipers. They've not had to prove in any way that they're any good at shooting. And they usually shoot from a long way away because they want to, be safe for them. Sure. And they're shooting in a particular way because they don't want to spoil the trophy. And the majority, and I mean the majority of animals are wounded. They are not killed outright. And then there's a whole job where the hunter, the hunting guide, and maybe trackers are trying to find the animal. And they're following the blood trail. Yeah. And in some cases, they never find it. Or in some cases, they might even find the animal accidentally 2 or 3 weeks later. But so many animals are lost and they die these awful, awful deaths. One of the reasons for that is the same as why Walter Palmer shot Cecil with a bow and then refused to put him out of his misery. And it's because he was trying to win a special award. So Safari Club International, the organization which Walter Palmer was a member of and had won several prizes with, it offers awards to trophy hunters who shoot big game with novel weapons. Things like bows and arrows, crossbows, but also revolvers. So you can get a special award for shooting big game animals that are notoriously difficult to kill anyway because they've got thick skins, etc. You get a special prize if you shoot them with a revolver. There's a guy, for example, who I write about in one of my recent books called Leon Munyon. He's won pretty much every single award with Safari Club International, and he's done it almost entirely by using just a revolver. And then they have the record books where, again, they give special distinction to trophy hunters who, for example, shoot a hippo with an air gun. And then there are companies that offer these special thrill opportunities whereby, for example, if you go to Argentina, they call mountain lions pumas down there. And there's a guy who I've been writing about, and he writes about this wonderful adventure that he had where he got to spear a puma, spear a mountain lion. So with this company, they had this pack of dogs. They located this animal. They chased it. Got it to go up a tree, which they do a lot in the industry, and then they're trapped. And then the guy goes and spears this puma, this mountain lion, whilst it's up the tree. And of course, dogs are used in quite a few different hunts, whether it's leopards or bears in North America. And of course, in many cases, you get the dogs are seriously injured or even killed because the animal falls out of the tree, is desperate to try to escape. And the dogs are treated pretty cruelly. Sometimes they use, for example, bait animals to train the dogs to go after the prey. So they use raccoons, for example, animals to train the dogs on, and shock collars. And if the dog suddenly isn't interested anymore, then they get rid of the dog. They kill the dog. I mean, it's an ever-ending cycle of cruelty and cowardice.
It's remarkable to think of the money involved. One rare elephant kill can get you upwards of $150,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. What bothers me even more so is the number of groups supporting this kind of action is actually growing, not decreasing. And that's the sad thing on a worldwide level. We have a number here in the States that's, I think right now, pushing 120 clubs. That's a lot of groups. You got your hands full, brother. I'm going to tell you now. That's a lot of groups. 120 that go out. These are groups with anywhere from 5 members up to 100 members that go out at any given time of the year and hunt for prize. And sometimes they just hunt for the hell of it. I know Amelia's got a question for you. Go ahead, Amelia.
Yes, I noticed that on your Facebook page, you had a picture with these 2 gentlemen that had all different types of animals that were taxidermied, like the polar bear, the tiger, the lion. What kind of were they like in a club or certain type of club, or were they doing it just for sport, or?
They do it just for sport. I mean, and there's an enormous number of people who do it. So Safari Club International has handed out about 20,000 different awards, and those awards are all for killing multiple animals. It's got about 200 different awards if you look at all the different scales. I mean, give you one example. Something they call the Hunting Achievement Award, and like a lot of what they call the Inner Circle Awards, it's got different layers. So it's a bit like a computer game or a console game. You know, you got to kill this many animals to get to the next level, and then to get to the next level, you've got to kill even more animals. So with the Hunting Achievement Award, you start off at the copper level. You have to shoot 17 different kinds of animals, 17 different species, and then the next one is the bronze, and then you've got silver. It's got to be 50.
Wow.
And then for the gold, it's 100. And then the top prize is diamond, 125 different species. So not just 125 animals, it's animals from 125 different species. And I name, in one of my books, I name 300 members of Safari Club International who've been given that prize for shooting 125 different animals. And they do it without the slightest sense of irony. So one of their very, very top prize, and you have to shoot somewhere around the 500, 530 animals for it.
Yeah, exactly.
The World Conservation Hunting Award. They call it conservation. I mean, they have no sense of irony.
All right.
I want to talk about that because I did some research, and I said to Google, give me the argument for trophy hunting, and the first thing that comes up, and you're shaking your head, you know where I'm going with this because you've probably done this a million times. The first thing that comes up is balance in nature. We're conservationists. We're protecting the balance of nature from overpopulation of any particular whatever.
Yeah, extraordinary, isn't it?
The argument is convincing, and I hate to say it, but it's plausible. But now I want you to shoot pardon the pun, shoot some holes in that argument for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, look, they call it conservation for 2 reasons. One is that when you shoot, for example, an elephant or a lion or whatever, you pay a trophy fee. And that trophy fee is supposed to go into both conservation and back to the local community. And then the second reason they call it conservation is because they say, well, look, it means that the habitat is protected, the species is, we've got to have a reason to hunt, so we've got to protect the animals. And so that this is conservation. It doesn't work for 2 reasons. So firstly, the trophy fees. Firstly, the trophy fees don't go to conservation, right? They go into the pockets of politicians, or they go into the general bank account of the government, but they do not go into conservation. First and foremost, I know that because I've spoken to so many, village elders in African communities, including around the Campfire Project in Zimbabwe, which is held up as this great example of hunting and conservation working in harmony, and also Naxo in Namibia, the other great case study. Well, the wildlife populations there have fallen by 2/3 in the last decade, and that's their own figures. That's not mine. So the trophy fees doesn't happen. The second is that it means that you're protecting the area and therefore the habitat and therefore the species. Well, all that does is make a really, really, really strong argument for a transition to photo safaris, to nature tourism. So let's take the example of Cecil. So when Walter Palmer shot that lion, he paid $50,000 as a trophy fee. None of that went into conservation. But if a lion like Cecil is able to generate around $100,000 per year that it is alive, so you add up, it's 15 years is the average lifespan of a lion in the wild, so 15 years, that's about $1.5 million. Well, we know that the cost of conserving a lion and his or her habitat is around about $1 million over their lifetime. So nature tourism means the lion is paying his or her way. Whereas if you shoot the lion, well, you get $50,000 as a one-off.
Yeah, one and done.
Which, even if it did go to conservation, which it doesn't, even if it did go to conservation, is a drop in the ocean. Doesn't come close to paying the costs of conservation for that species. And if you look at the lion population around Africa, it is going down everywhere dramatically. So less than 20,000 today, and it was 200,000 in the 1970s, with a few exceptions. Kenya being the big exception. So Kenya, which banned trophy hunting in the late 70s, it's got lion populations going up, it's got rhino populations going up, it's got elephant populations going up. And one of the reasons is that money is going into conservation and to the community. So compare Kenya with neighboring Tanzania. Tanzania, you can do trophy hunting. In Kenya, you can't. Kenya is able to invest 70 times as much per hectare into conservation as neighboring Tanzania. Plus, look at what's happened to the people in Kenya. So the Maasai tribe, every single Maasai tribe child in Kenya is now able to get a high school education funded through and purely through nature tourism. So, of course, they really feel the benefits of the wildlife and of the conservation of the wildlife. So the Maasai tribe actually used to have this tradition when you became a Maasai warrior that you would have to kill a lion. They've dropped it. In Kenya, they've dropped it because they suddenly realized, hang on a second, it is really good to have all of these lions because our kids are getting educated. We can go into work if we want. Our habitat, our traditions are being protected. Whereas in Tanzania, you've got thugs who are hired by the government to beat and shoot Maasai tribespeople off their land in order to make private hunting estates for rich Arab hunters.
Remarkable. Ed, you're familiar with the actor William Holden?
I'm not sure I am, actually.
Okay. William Holden was an avid wildlife conservationist. His partner in life was actress Stephanie Powers. You know who she is?
I do.
She's a friend of our show. One of the things that I know about Stephanie is that she is in charge of running the William Holden Sanctuary for Wildlife. It's a refuge in Kenya. Why are there not more private refuge sanctuaries for animals to go to? Why will they not? I guess I want to ask this way. Why is it so hard to get funding?
Yes.
I think funding is the key issue. You know, we had a challenge a couple of years ago. We ran this undercover operation where we found out about a young tiger cub that was being bred in South Africa to be shot in an enclosure by a trophy hunter, so they could have because of course you can't hunt wild tigers in India. India's banned trophy hunting many years ago. And so you've got these very sort of secret operations in South Africa where they breed, anything that moves, they'll breed, and they breed special varieties. So that you can you can go to these places, and we did, where you can buy a white lion to shoot, where you can buy a liger, which is a hybrid of a tiger.
Oh no!
Back up. We got to say that again. You're
Yeah.
telling me that people can buy a tiger, a rare white tiger, for
Yeah.
the purpose of shooting it in an enclosure.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
That's horrible.
And not
That's
only
just
they will, you can get
that's unbelievable. I can't fathom that.
It is. It's absolutely true. And you can get, and they will breed different types or colors. So they have, for example, golden tigers and tabby tigers, as well as normal tigers and white tigers. And you also have these hybrids of a lion and a tiger. They get them to breed, and you get something called a liger. They have those as well. Anyway, so we went and filmed all of this, and they've got, black leopards. They even breed bobcats there from North America, and all sorts. And again to shoot. So we discovered that there was a young tiger cub called Sally, and we thought, she was only, I can't remember how many weeks she was when we first came across her, but we thought we've got to try and find a way of rescuing her, and we actually managed to trick the guys who had her into giving her up. We basically made it seem that they were going to. They were on the verge of a huge business deal with a bunch of hunters who wanted to shoot all of these tigers, and they would become millionaires. But this would be a really good gesture of goodwill if they gave away this tiger. And it almost went horribly wrong because they started to get suspicious, and then they were going to shoot the tiger themselves. Anyway, we managed to get the tiger out. But the challenge that we had was finding a sanctuary where we could keep her safe, a place obviously had to be secret. And we were talking to a whole load of people, and obviously we had to be really, really careful about it. And we did eventually find a place, and we've released, and it's wonderful. It's huge. It's all, like a natural habitat, and it's got a pond in it and all these toys. And we've now found her a friend. So she's got a playmate that she loves. But it was incredibly difficult. There are very few places, very few sanctuaries like the William Holden one out there. And I think funding is the major issue. Partly, I think, because people don't understand the scale of the threats that wildlife are facing, and also the activities of the trophy hunting industry. Since 1970, I used to work for the World Wildlife Fund, and one of the things that I was involved in was producing this report every 2 years called the Living Planet Report. And the Living Planet Report basically would say, look, what's happening to our wildlife populations? And the last report last year says that since 1970, populations of wildlife have fallen by about 70%. We are in an absolute conservation crisis. And yet at the same time, we have trophy hunters who are shooting tens of thousands of endangered animals every year, and then tens of thousands more animals that aren't classed as endangered, but probably will become endangered. But we're just not, the authorities aren't monitoring the numbers, so we don't know the exact number. But the various estimates suggest that as many as 100,000 animals each year are shot by trophy hunters. And when you've got a situation like with lions, when 10,000 lions have been shot in the last decade, and the species is now down to its last 20,000, you've got to say, back up, guys. We've got to put a stop to this. We are literally bringing about the first extinction.
The sad part is, and I'm not making a word of this up, the sad part is that if, God forbid, lions become extinct, it won't stop the trophy hunter. They'll just find something else to kill. That's the nature of what they do. They're just mercenaries. That's basically all they are.
Well, you know what? I when I was trying in the last few years, I've been doing this undercover investigation, trying to get inside the minds of trophy hunters, and that's been the scariest thing of all. It's not so much the numbers or the endangered animals; it's actually finding out what they really think and feel, and the things that they were saying. And I'm just going to read you out a couple of things which they said. So there's a guy and he's shot over 4,000 animals,
Whoa.
including 1,300 elephants, 340 lions, and a couple of gorillas. And he says, I hunt in moderation. There was a guy, he says, I hunt in moderation.
4,000 is moderation.
Apparently.
Wow.
Okay.
Apparently. There's another guy who shot 5,000 elephants, and he talks about the exhilaration. He gets so excited about it. Another one who said, look, I've shot so many animals, I can't tell you how many, but it's in the thousands. But then when they say, why they do it, what gives them that kick, they say things like, and this is where I'm quoting, the adrenaline starts coursing through my blood when I see the animal. Another one says, this is after he shot an animal. He says, that was the most emotional moment of my life. Another one who's hunting bears. He says, this is the fire of desire for this trophy. And another one who talks about the adrenaline-induced experience. These guys, they are addicted to the thrill. They have this adrenaline rush. And one guy, he's actually the topic of my third book. He says, trophy hunting, it's like mainlining on heroin. And this is a guy who shot
wow.
That's potent
rhinos.
statement.
And isn't it crazy? But then they also it's the way they talk about the
fucking scary is what it is.
That's awful.
You know what? That's exactly what I thought, because I used to work in law enforcement. That was my sort of first career. And I know
it is. It's
if
fucking
these
scary.
Right? If these guys were suspects and they were saying these kinds of things, it's time for the big guys from the FBI to come in, right?
No shit.
These guys are,
Yeah.
there have been cases of trophy hunters who've been serial killers. There's one guy in the US years ago, I forget his name now, but so he used to go out trophy hunting, and he used to do the same with women. So he would kidnap a woman, he would strip her naked, put her in the boot of the car, drive out into the middle of the forest, then get her out of the trunk of the car and say, run, and give her like a 10-minute head start.
Jeez.
And then he would hunt her down in exactly the same way that he would hunt down animals.
Oh my gosh.
Green market. There was a guy here in the States. His name was Jackson Miles. He's doing life in prison now, thank God. They had set up, the FBI had set up a sting in which, and they knew it was going to happen, and they had to sacrifice this animal to get him. But they knew that he was after this rare breed of Bengal tiger, and there's only a handful of them left. And they had to, in order to catch him, they operated a sting setup, a sting operation, because they knew he wanted this tiger. So they set it up. The tiger was in a truck, a box truck with ventilation. And sure enough, here comes Mr. Miles Jackson, and up to the truck, puts his gun through the the slats, kills the tiger. Boom, boom. They got him red-handed. Okay, so he's going to spend the next, however, eternity in jail. But that tiger had to sacrifice its life to get that prick.
Yeah.
It's awful.
What bothers me is, before we do anything, then I'll tell you what bothers me. I've got to get this out of here. Edward's books. Can I call you Ed? Is that okay?
Do, please. My wife does. All my friends do.
Ed's books are Trophy Leaks. I think that was the first one, right?
It was I think Trophy Hunters Exposed was the first one, and then it was
Trophy Hunters Exposed, then Trophy Leaks, Killing Game, and Undercover Trophy Hunter. They are the books. They are available at right here at Ed Goncalves at WordPress. .wordpress.com. I didn't want to say at WordPress. Again, Ed Goncalves at .wordpress.com. You can get all of Ed's books there. And by the way, they are available. Wrong one. Here it is. Hot damn. Ed's books are available at Amazon.com in the US, Amazon.co.uk in Great Britain, and of course the website we just mentioned, edgoncalves.wordpress.com. See, I redeemed myself on WordPress. I want to tell everybody that the United States Endangered Species Act levies fines of up to $50,000 for a first offense and imprisonment of a minimum of 18 months in jail. That's a year and a half, in case you're counting. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, that is the standing law. Problem is, Ed, and you probably know this, and you probably know I'm going to go there. The problem is, how do you catch them to enforce such law?
Absolutely. And even those that are caught, they usually only get a slap on the wrist. There's been very little enforcement. And there have been, over the years, there have been thousands that have been seized and confiscated. Actually, just very recently, there was a giraffe penis intercepted by customs in the US, and supposedly a hunting trophy. All right. It was a hunting trophy, this guy said, and it actually got seized. But, you know, the laws, there's one big problem with the law, actually. It's international law. So we have this thing that you may have heard of, which is called CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. And that supposedly is there to stop all trade in endangered animals in order to protect them and prevent them from becoming extinct. And you have different grades of different categories. So, for example, cheetahs and leopards, they're in Appendix 1. They're the most endangered. So there's only 6,500 cheetahs left in the world. And so, and what the CITES Treaty says is that animals like cheetahs, they must not be traded or killed unless there are exceptional circumstances. That's what the law says, what international law says. What actually happens is that anyone can go on the internet and buy a cheetah to shoot. Go on a website like bookyourhunt.com, right? It's like the Amazon or the eBay of trophy hunting. You can buy any animal there. You can buy a cheetah, a leopard, an elephant, a lion, a rhino, or you can buy all sorts of stuff. You can buy skunks and anteaters and beavers and badgers and seals if you really want, just to shoot for fun. And the reason is that they've made this exception in CITES, which is that, well, trophy hunting isn't really a commercial activity, so we can't really call it trade. Therefore, right,
man, do I have a problem with that?
Right? Of course, people who want to go and shoot a cheetah or a leopard or whatever, they pay tens of thousands of dollars to do this. There's companies that are making, $1 million profits every year out of this. This is an industry that's making a killing, literally, out of killing animals. And
here's where my mind goes. Okay, I have a kind of twisted sensibility here. I'm going to make the TikTok connection with you. When TikTok was going to shut down, the outcry from the world audience was loud, clear, and concise. We want our TikTok. Why? Because it generates tens upon millions and trillions of dollars. Crazy money. Okay? You start stepping on the toes of these money changers, these greedy bastard money changers, when it comes to you, my friend, you watch how popular you're going to become. When you start messing with their money, that's, I mean, we're talking about literally in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It's crazy money. I want to do this. It's important because as much as Ed has his hand in all of this, there are some other groups I want to talk about real quick. For more information on the horrors of trophy hunting, contact my friends at info@bornfree.org.uk. They are good people. They will assist you in every way possible. Once again, Ed's books are available at Amazon.com in the U.S., Amazon.co.uk in the United Kingdom, and edgonzalez.wordpress.com. You can also find information on the local World Wide Web if you do not have access to some of these websites, and I know some are geo-restricted. Let me know here at the show, and I will get you Ed's information, and I will get you in contact with him directly if that's what you need to do. One of the things I wanted to do is take a little break right now and show you kind of what I put together for you. I want you to take a look at this. We got some commercials to run anyway, so take a look at this.
Hey Max, what's going on? I'm X, and from this moment on, I'm going to be your own personal AI DJ on Spotify. Let's go. Up next, I know you've been on a summer song kick lately, so I went back for some of your old summertime favorites. See if it warms you up. Next up, some of the music you had on a lot back in 2018.
Do you think of me? Walking out there.
All right, Max, let's get you out of your feels and switch up the vibe. You've been into dance music lately. I got this brand new release to get you moving. Introducing DJ, the best of Spotify made just for you, one tap away. Powered by AI, delivered by me. You're very...
We are back on What's the Buzz, America's Podcast. I am Mad Dog DeCipio. She is Pitbull Chapman, and that's our new best friend, Ed Goncalves. Live from the UK, and I kept him up. He's past his bedtime, folks, but he's staying up for me. Ed, I want to talk to you a little bit about the rudimentary problem of enforcing law, both nationally, territorially, and internationally. It seems to be that, there's a lawyer hiding in every bush. There's always somebody that's going to use the right words, say the right things to get around the law. Quote my friend Rosie. I want to see this. It says, there's a special place in hell for people who use technical language to get around the law. Quote from Rosie. That's from our friend Leon. Leon, tell Rosie kudos, brother. But we need to talk about that. It's important we do. There seems to be a growing number of, at least here in the States, a growing number of litigation cases, animal rights activists, pro and con, by the way. There are a number of these groups don't always have detractors, Ed. There's a lot of supporters, a lot of people who support trophy hunting. I was actually, quite frankly, a little scared at the number that I read because they exceed 2 million in the U.S. alone, and that's a lot of people. And that's a conservative estimate, by the way, just so you know. That's a conservative estimate. Minimum 2 million is what we came up with. The concern here, just on a rudimentary level, how do you successfully bring to trial and win a case against these people who have lobbyists, who have money, who have the best lawyers they can buy, and sometimes the best judges in their pockets? Let's not kid ourselves. The world is not an innocent place. Mm-hmm. And if there's money to be had, somebody's going to have it. Trust me. So I'll leave you to answer that, my friend.
Well, first of all, you got to start. You got to start somewhere, and you got to go on the offensive, because right now we're not even trying. The society as a whole isn't actually trying to impose any bans on this. We've seen some modest restrictions going on by countries in Europe and actually in the States as well. You can't, for example, bring in a cheetah into the US. You can't bring in a polar bear into the US as it is at the moment. And there are countries like the Netherlands and Belgium and Poland and Finland and France and Australia, etc. They're bringing bans on imports of hunting trophies there. And there are a few countries that have banned any trophy hunting happening on their land, like India and Kenya and Costa Rica and Colombia and so on. But, you know, we've got to tackle this on a worldwide level. We've got to move towards an international ban on trophy hunting. And, you know, it isn't going to be easy. Of course, it wasn't easy getting rid of slavery. It wasn't easy getting rid of apartheid. It wasn't easy ending segregation. You know, it was a long, hard battle to win civil rights in the US. But people said, you know what, this is the right thing to do, and we've got to start, and we've got to start now. And we have to, because, look, when I was doing my most recent investigation, and I was I was posing as a trophy hunter, and I was being told the most extraordinary things. So I went to the CEOs of hunting companies and said, look, you know, what do you got for me? What can you sell me? And I was being offered endangered animals like they were candy, right?
Oh,
so there was
wow.
one. So there's one company that said, hey, listen, every polar bear adventure is unique. That's what one company said. Another one said, he was trying to sort of give me advice on how best to use my money and my budget. He said, hey, listen, a cheetah hunt is more cost friendly. And then another one was trying to sort of get me to buy a leopard hunt. And he said, look, shoot a leopard. It's worth it. And then another company who were trying to sell me an elephant hunt.
Who?
Right,
worth it for fucking
Worth
who?
it for what?
Another
was-
guy said, "Look,
God,
I had a
man.
you have
You're
a
going to
very
get my Sicilian up here, brother.
What about for like international waters? And were you ever offered anything for international waters?
not in international waters. I was talking very much, you know, mammals, and because they make up the bulk of the industry. But you know, and I was reading hunters' biographies and the articles that they write in very obscure industry journals, and as well as obviously talking to them, and it was that sadistic pleasure which they took from causing harm and death, which made me feel, you know what, we've got to start. We've got to actually do this. So there was a guy, and this guy, by the way, he's a former president of Safari Club International, and then he went on and set up an organization called Conservation Force, which sounds very nice, doesn't it? But all it does is he's a lawyer, and he sues governments and companies that refuse to allow hunting trophies. So he sued, for example, Delta Airlines because they said we're not going to carry hunting trophies. He sued the state of New Jersey because they said we're not going to let hunting trophies come in. He's won some, he's lost some, but he's won more than he's lost. But he said this. He described how the lion's head snaps backward and it explodes with smoke from my bullet. Right. And this guy, you know, his father was a police chief. You know, he's supposedly a respectable member of society. There's another hunter who said, again, this is talking about a lion. He said, I shot it through the left eye, blowing out the back of the skull. And then just one last, and again, another lion. He said, the arrow entered beneath the lioness's chin and took out her heart.
Oh
Right?
my gosh.
Regretful statements. These aren't saying, you know, oh, it's awful. It all went. No, these are celebratory statements. These are guys saying, how great am I? This is what I did to this innocent, defenseless animal that I was killing, not for food, but just for fun.
Can we talk about that? My brother-in-law is an avid hunter, and he hunts. His particular is deer hunting. I live here in New Jersey, so I'm very familiar with the legalities and the legislation with regards to trophy hunting here in this state. By the way, we have I think we may have in the U.S. the largest population of black bear, which is indigenous to New Jersey, and the state encourages people to kill them because we have what they call an overabundance. You know, they're going into populated areas, you know, for food, and well, they're going into populated areas for food because we're tearing down their natural habitat, the forest. Where are they going to go? You know, but we still, even with that, we have an abundance of black bear, which is I hear, and I haven't tasted it, but I hear is really good meat. I know, for example, that rock star Ted Nugent is quite involved in that, and you know what I'm talking about. He will kill animals, but not for sport, for food only. And so I understand, unless you have information I don't know.
Well, he's also said things like, have you ever woken up in the morning just wanting to kill something? That is a direct quote from Ted
Oh.
Nugent.
I know, I believe it or not, Ed, I know that quote. Yes, sir.
It's
I
an
do.
incredible thing to say, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, black bear hunting is probably the biggest form of trophy hunting that there is. So we might think that an African country like South Africa is the biggest market, if you like, for trophy hunting, so where most hunting trophies come out of. It's not. It's Canada, and Canada by quite some distance. And in large part, it's because of black bears. It's also because of grizzly bears. It's also because of polar bears. So Canada is the one country in the world that still allows polar bear trophy hunting. So the US has banned polar bear trophy hunting. Russia has banned polar bear trophy hunting. The Norwegians have as well, because they had some in the Svalbard Islands. But so Canada is the only place where you can still go polar bear trophy hunting.
Oh, wow.
And they also allow a lot of cougar hunting, so a lot of mountain lion hunting, a lot of Canada lynx and bobcat and wolf hunting. And add that all together, and it is it accounts for well over a quarter of the total world's trophy hunting. And that's from foreign trophy hunters, obviously, people going into
It
Canada.
took Canada a long time. It really, really took Canada a long time to step up and finally stop the senseless clubbing of both white seal and and domestic seal. And Canada is just, I think it's just my opinion, Ed. I think they're so far behind the 8 ball, they'll never catch up.
What about the zebras? I haven't really heard that mentioned about the zebras a lot. What's the population?
So the most popular zebra species. So there's more than one that trophy hunters tend to shoot. There's the Birchells, there's the plains, and then there's the Hartmann zebra. The Hartmann zebra is the most popular one. It's classed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. There's about 33,000 left, and zebra trophy hunting accounts for something like 5% of the total amount of trophy hunting of endangered species. So yeah, zebras are incredibly popular. And so some people have argued, well, maybe we should have a sort of partial ban on just those species that are most most endangered. Well, the problem is that you could argue that the plain zebra is actually more endangered. And how is a customs officer, when he opens up a suitcase, going to be able to tell between the difference of the skin of a Birchall zebra, a plain zebra, or a Hartmann zebra? They look virtually identical. It's the same with hyenas. You've got the brown hyenas, which are very endangered. You've got spotted and striped hyenas, slightly less so. But again, they look pretty much the same when you open up that suitcase. Right. So, we've just got to say, do you know what? It is just plain wrong. I mean, this isn't so much a conservation issue as a plain ethics and moral issue. The reason why murder is a crime in society is not because we're worried about the extinction of the human race. It's because we consider it to be wrong. It's based on values. Well, surely we, as a modern civilized society, should be able to recognize that innocent and defenseless animals, many of which are beautiful, they can be ugly too, but surely they have as much of a right to life as we do.
Yes. Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Remarkable. Our friend Leon says hunting for food is perfectly okay, but trophy hunting is sick. I want to talk to you about something that, and I don't know how prevalent my country is in all of this. My suspicion is that we're probably a major player. What, from your research, Ed, what country spends the largest amount of time and or money in this bizarre endeavor? The only way I can politely say, because I want to use the F-bomb again, but I won't.
Yeah, well, it's not going to surprise you. It is the US.
So my goodness.
Over half of all the world's trophy hunters are American. I've written a book that's coming out now, which is the book 20 elephants in 75 minutes, which, by the way, is the proud boast of a trophy hunter. And I profiled 25 of the world's current top trophy hunters. And the majority of them are American. There's some Canadians in there. There's a guy from Canada who actually hunted non-stop for 18 years. So he would go to the Safari Club International Convention at the beginning of the year in January, and he'd buy up all the hunts that were being sold there. So it's like this big trade fair. And they'd spend the rest of the year hunting and then go back in January, buy some more. He spent 18 years doing this. He'd do like 12 different expeditions during the year. And his idea was to get one animal of every species on Earth. And you've got people who've got trophy rooms that aren't rooms at all. They are hangars. They're like airplane hangars. They've created their own museums, and they have hundreds, sometimes thousands of bodies in there. So yeah, it's Americans, they're the worst, but then there's some Canadians, there's some Mexicans, and there's some Russians in there, and I think there was a Hungarian in my top 25 as well. But yeah, the vast majority, I'm afraid, they're from the US.
I'm not surprised. I can honestly say I'm not surprised whatsoever. One of the things that I don't know if it contributes to the mystique or repels the mystique, but the use of trophy hunting and or hunting in general as a part of film and television. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. The entire Jurassic Park film series, in one form, fashion, or another, and I mean with no exception, folks, in every single franchise, had a trophy hunter. Now, does this encourage the activity, or is it having the opposite effect because of the nature of what they're doing?
I mean, it makes it more acceptable, doesn't it? It makes it seem like it's an adventure.
Well, yeah, film and television, it's just like in your living room now. It's crazy.
Yeah. But, one of the things that that I found most shocking is that a growing number of trophy hunting companies are trying to market this as a family-friendly activity. So there are a number of companies that sell and actively promote children in hunting. So I
tell you something, Ed?
What?
I found out, Amelia, this is going to shock you and Ed, Amelia. This number, by the way, comes from bornfree.org.uk. 44% of all trophy hunters are female. 44%. That's their number, not mine. In fact, you saw that statistic on that video that we played. That's accurate. That's real. And if you want to check the numbers, go to bornfree.org.uk. These are real numbers.
The other thing
that I'm fascinated about, what's the say again, Amelia?
I couldn't see myself hurting a cute little animal, because as a matter of fact, I even have a picture of me holding a baby tiger. So they're just adorable. I couldn't see myself hurting one.
Right. So with that as the precipice for this, it doesn't surprise me that they're marketing this to families and kids and women. The girls' night out. Let's go hunt an elephant. Girls' night out. Whatever. It's bizarre. Again, I'm trying to show some. My audience is going nuts right now, Ed, because by now I've dropped about 100 F-bombs during the show.
Yeah, he's trying to be
respectful. I'm trying to exercise, because my friend is from the UK and they're very proper there, and they don't say a lot of cuss words.
Right.
Like I do.
Hey, I'll tell you something, right? Because I genuinely don't swear very much at all. But whilst I was writing this book, my wife would sometimes sort of walk in, because she would hear me sort of hammering on the laptop, and I'd suddenly just say a word out loud, and it'd be because of something I just read that a trophy hunter had said or done, and I'd say, bastard or something, and she'd, "Are you okay, Ed?"
Right.
Do that.
You'd be saying "son of a biscuit" or something like that.
Yeah. My audience is going to say that about me. What's wrong with Mad Dog?
I had a question too. You know how you had mentioned animals? What about like the ostrich? Is that something that's hunted as well?
Right. Go on the internet. Go on virtually any South African company website, and they've got like a menu. So just like you go to a menu for, and you want to order a hamburger and fries and whatever.
Oh my
A
God.
menu of animals, and it'll tell you how much each animal is. And ostriches are often in there. I mean, almost always actually.
Oh
But
my
you
God.
get some really weird ones, like sort of civet cats, wild cats, African wild cats. And of course, your giraffes and your leopards and so on. What else are there? Some of the really weird ones. I mean, you get all sorts of antelopes, big and small. But you can shoot any right. You go to like bookyourhunts.com.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to check
it out. And it's mind blowing because you can get your giraffes and your cheetahs and your elephants and lions on there, but you can search for anything, and it's like an Amazon. So you put in the name of a species of an animal. You can put in anteater, you can put in beaver, seal, skunk, squirrel, wallaby, right?
Oh my,
remarkable. When my publicist gave me your information, I thought to myself, well, I gotta check this out. Well, I'm gonna tell you something, my brother. I don't shock easily, but my eyes are open to an entirely new world. And this is, I'm not saying that in a pleasant way. This is a bizarre, a strange world, to meander through, and you're doing it excellently, and with dignity and class. But I have to tell you that there are some strange sites out there. Bookyourhunt.com is just one of literally hundreds of websites that offer these kind of, junkets, animal hunting junkets is really what they are. Our friend El Ruffian 163 says, what about overpopulation, Ed? Isn't there a few issues with wild hogs or bucks that have to be thinned out, so to speak?
Well, there's two answers to that. One is that in many cases, it's not so much a case of overpopulation as we're encroaching into their habitats, or we've removed the natural predator from the ecosystem. So yes, then you do get a problem of overpopulation. But there's also a very clear distinction between trophy hunting, which is killing for fun, and culling or wildlife management. And the latter, which may in some cases be necessary, for example, to remove diseased animals, that is done by a skilled professional. It's done by somebody who knows how to shoot. It's not done by a grinning psychopath who has no qualifications and who doesn't know how to shoot, and who often will just end up wounding an animal. So those are two completely separate things.
Remarkable. I want another hour and a half, 2 hours with you, but my friend, I am up against the clock, and you probably want to go to hell to bed right now.
I know he looks exhausted.
I'm happy to keep talking as long as people are prepared to listen. I'm happy to keep talking about this.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we do this right now? Will you come back with us if I hit you up? Would you come back on the show with us?
I would love to. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. I got the commitment from him. It's on the air, and he can't take it back.
That's right.
Well, I'll tell you what, my friend. This has been quite an enlightening evening. I will tell you, and I don't, as I said, I don't surprise easily, but this was something. Well, it's that time to say goodnight, folks. Until we meet again, and I hope we do meet again, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Take care of each other. Be kind. Be generous. We only go around it once, and for Amelia the Pitbull Chapman, I got to deal with her every week, folks.
Hey. I'm in a good mood. Today's my daughter's birthday. So
for Ed Goncalves, and man, we wish you all the greatest in your endeavor to shut these animals down.
Absolutely.
And the animals I'm talking about are the people running this shit. I am the Mad Dog. Take care of each other. Good night, folks. God bless. We'll see you again.